Hey guys, Johnny here. Today I wanted to break down the results I found of reviewing over 200 men's messages on Hinge. There's a lot of common messages out there, and I think breaking this down will show you what it's going to take to stand out a little bit more. So let's get started. Why does this matter? If you're not aware, online dating is very competitive. There's anywhere from 3 to 5 times more men on dating apps than women. So they see a lot of the same profiles, and if you're getting matches, that means you are standing out in some way. Women only match with about 2 to 4% of guys on the app, so you don't want to be sending out generic messages that immediately ruin your chances to get the date. Also, I think there's a lot of guys who have low confidence when it comes to dating apps. They don't know what to say, so they just come up with the first thing on their mind. Hey, she liked my pictures. I don't have to do that much effort. I can just say, hey, how are you? And she'll respond, which isn't the case. Many girls will match with you because of boredom. They liked you at the time. They thought you were cute. So your message is important to send. So in this video, I'm going to break down, I looked at 258 messages to find out what's being sent and what's going to maybe work for you guys. Out of those messages, there's 258 messages. 58 of those messages or likes, they never responded. So I reviewed 200 total matches that were sent. Here's just a little breakdown of that. And here's a breakdown of the types of messages that are being sent. So an overwhelming amount of them are just generic openers. Hey, how are you? How's your weekend? Happy Monday. Did you have a good weekend? So these are not making you stand out in any way. If you are having results with this, you might have just a fantastic profile. Many guys are doing fine. You're getting the matches, but you don't want to be sending out stuff like this it doesn't give her anything to respond to. She's got 8 messages like this every day, and she's not going to respond to everyone saying, yeah, I'm great, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing every day. So as you can see, 95 out of 200 were all either, hey, how are you? How's your weekend? Very generic stuff. Next, we have just the direct compliments. You're so hot. I think you're sexy. You're very gorgeous, I saw a couple times. And these are not really separating you either. Only 7% did message like this, but again, it doesn't give her anything to respond to. It comes off as kind of needy. You're willing to put her on a pedestal already without knowing anything about her. So I don't know if I would keep doing that. The next is asking about her location. So this specific girl marked Budapest as her hometown. She's from Budapest. So a lot of guys were asking, are you from Budapest? When it clearly says it in her bio. Or they'll ask, are you from Budapest? Why are you here? And I know you want to get to know girls, like why they're here, but that doesn't get you any closer to learning anything about them as a person. Again, it's pretty common, 8%. It's not the most common, but it's also not engaging. It doesn't look like you checked her profile much except for her biographics. So again, if you're going to message on location, offer some value about it. Oh, I heard this about Budapest. Is this true? And then she can respond to that. Not just asking, are you from Budapest, when you obviously know the answer. So if you've been doing that with other girls, asking about their location, I would recommend teasing on that location or stating something that you know about that location and ask if it's true rather than just stating the obvious. There was 12.5% of guys taking value. And by that, I mean they would ask for her to do the work. Tell me about Budapest. I want you to tell me about your hobbies. I want you to do this. And it's not a great opening message because she doesn't even know if she likes you. She doesn't want to invest time into somebody she doesn't want to get to know. And sometimes it's very difficult questions. What are your hobbies? I mean, that could be a huge list. It could maybe be a struggle if somebody just has a routine that they do and they don't want to list it out. So again, it's not the ideal message to get a response. 7% were just immediately going for a date. So they would ask within the first 2 messages, hey, I want to take you on a date. Let's go get drinks. Let's meet here. Let's go get ice cream. Ice cream was one of her prompts. And again, this doesn't get her to know anything about you. You don't know anything about her. It kind of makes it seem that you're willing to ask anybody on a date who's attractive because you don't filter anything out. You don't know. Maybe she's batshit crazy and you would have a terrible time on the date, or you'd have nothing in common, but you don't know that just going for a date right away. And many times girls are nervous about going on dates. They don't want to be stuck on a date with a guy that they don't like or that they have nothing in common with, and then they're just sitting there for hours wondering when they can leave. So going for a date right away, I've had it work, but you have to be their type exactly. Otherwise, it could backfire, and then you're stuck trying to get the conversation re-going after you might have already blown it by going for the date right away. And then 17.5% was all prompt-based, or some were decent messages, so they maybe would have got response, but a lot of it was prompt-focused. So one of her prompts mentioned swimming with dolphins in cold water. And rather than teasing about that or coming up with something unique, a lot of the questions were, was it really that cold? How were the dolphins? It was very much just specifically about the prompt and nothing about her as a person. So it's very generic. As you can see, 17% are asking that kind of question. So it's the same kind of thing as the hey, how are you? It's very common to see. It doesn't make you stand out. And it's kind of lazy just asking a question based on the prompt. One of the prompts was something about she likes having fun and eating ice cream. So you can imagine a lot of the questions were, what's your favorite ice cream? Where would you go for ice cream? And it's very, very generic, very friend-zoney, doesn't get you to know anything about her. So that's a breakdown of these messages that I found. As I said, there were some good messages in that 17.5%. There's some random messages. But as you can see, a majority of the messages are, hey, how are you? That's a huge chunk. So if you just stay away from that, you're doing better than almost 50% of the guys. Direct compliments, just saying you're hot. Again, that doesn't really separate you. It kind of just shows you're thirsty, and it doesn't give her really anything to respond to. She could just say you too, and then you have to continue to go. But, I mean, you have to be super hot for that to work out. So it's maybe not in your favor. If it is, then keep doing that. Yeah, as I mentioned, asking about location, which is very obvious. If she says on her profile where she's from, asking her, is she really from there, is not it's not getting the conversation off to a good start. And then taking value. You don't want to make the girl do the work for you by telling you something about her to begin the interaction. That's more for after you guys have talked a little bit, you know she's interested in the conversation, then you can qualify and learn a bit about her. So here's reasons why it doesn't work. So out of the 47.5% of the messages that were generic, they're not engaging. She sees this all day, every day if she's matching with guys. They don't make you stand out. It doesn't give her a reason to respond. She would just, what's she going to say? My weekend was good. I had fun. And then your next question is going to be, what did you do? And it's very much, you're getting into that friend zone territory, and the conversation is going to lead to nowhere. It's kind of a red flag immediately. I think most girls can tell when a guy says, hey, or how are you, or how was your weekend? The conversation is just going to lead to nowhere. So avoid these openers as much as you can. As you see, that's very common, and it's not making you stand out in any way. There's 35% of compliments, asking her out too quick, and the location questions. The asking her out on a date is immediately going to make her wonder if she's attracted to you. If she is, maybe it works out for you. That's great. A lot of the times, as I mentioned, girls will wonder if they want to be on a date with some guy they don't even know, or they'll think that he has no options because he's so desperate to ask for dates right away. Um, they can come off as needy, like you don't have any options. Same with the compliments. You're just desperate to get some approval, so you're hoping that she responds to "you're hot" and then just immediately wants to meet up. I guess I'm not entirely sure what the objective is with that. And then location questions don't tell you anything about her. Are you really from this area? Yes. But that doesn't tell you about her as a person. And then you'll ask about that area, and it comes off as very much friend zone or conversation to know her as well. And then there was the 17.5%. There was prompts comments, and just being somewhat unique. So there were some good ones, but very low majority. So it's not hard to stand out here, guys. Many of these questions were just, like I said, regarding her prompts. How was the cold water? What's your favorite ice cream? Do you like to do this? So if you're going to comment on her prompt, that's great. I recommend commenting on her prompts more than her pictures. But make sure you're giving some value with it. I noticed this. Is this true? Or playfully tease about that prompt. We could go get ice cream, but promise you won't embarrass me by choosing chocolate and being basic. Something like that. You don't want to just ask questions, because all these guys are asking questions, and if she'll see that, she'll just think you're like everybody else, and she's not invested enough to want to answer those questions quite yet. So we've gone over, a lot of these common messages. Out of the 200, maybe I would say 5 to 10% were somewhat unique and probably were decent messages. So you don't even have to have anything spectacular here. It just has to be different than, 47.5% and 35%, whatever that comes out to be, 85%. It's not a lot to separate yourself. And if you are getting matches, you don't want to lose out on that, because, like I mentioned before, girls are only swiping on 2 to 4% of guys. So if you're getting the matches, that means they did like you, they like your profile, they want this interaction to go well. So here's 2 messages that work that'll make you stand out more than the 85, 90% of the guys out there. And they're very simple. You don't have to do a lot of thinking with them. The first one is, you seem quite X and Y name with the fingers crossed emoji. So all you have to do is look at her profile and come up with some adjectives that describe it. So in this case, it was, you seem quite sweet and stylish name. She had very good style in her pictures, and she looked like she was just a sweet girl. And so she responded, hey, I think you look sweet and stylish too. And then you keep the conversation going. You can also, with the adjectives, the good thing about the adjectives is it shows that you looked at her profile. You noticed something about her. It took some effort, even if it's not that much effort. Hey, name, fingers crossed, you're as fun and spontaneous in real life as you seem in your profile. So, you're hoping that she's fun and spontaneous. You get that from her profile. She's taking travel pics. She's riding a ATV. Just find some adjectives and then just swap them in with these messages. And then you can see she responded very positively. And girls are going to want to respond to these messages because they're different. You stand out. They're playful. And it gives her a chance to think about what she's presenting with her profile. And she might be very pleased to know that her profile looks like she's fun and spontaneous, or that she is playful and adventurous, or that she is kind of nerdy but sweet. So why these work is, they referenced her profile and they showed genuine interest. It shows that you took the time to look at her profile. You wanted to make sure that she is these things. That's what the fingers crossed does. I saw that you look quite sweet and stylish. I hope that you are. And then if they say, thank you, then you kind of are on the right track and you can progress the interaction forward. So it sparks that curiosity and with playfulness. So try those messages out if you guys are struggling. I know, like I said, I just broke down 200 messages. Very much generic messages are, you just get away from those. and you're better than almost 50% of the guys out there. Stay away from direct compliments. You can give a compliment, but follow it up with something. Don't just say you're hot. Say I like your eyes. I can imagine you were very sweet. Just off the top of my head. But just don't. I don't know how. There's not really a way to respond to you're hot unless she thinks you're super hot too. Which, if you have one of those profiles, you probably don't need to watch this video in the first place. Stay away from the locations, especially if it's obvious where she came from. If you do want to know why she's in town, do that later. You don't need to do that off your open. That's just going to be very much, that's a logistics question. You want to get some small talk going. You want to get some banter going before you find out much about logistics. And if you are going to ask if she's from Budapest, give some value about it. That's all I have for this video. Let me know if this helps you guys at all. I thought this was kind of an interesting breakdown. I knew that it was common for the hey, how are you, how's your weekend messages. I didn't realize it was almost 50%. And then, on top of direct compliments, which don't perform well, asking about location don't perform well, and then making her do the work by telling her she needs to tell you something or to give you something. Those don't typically work either. So there's a huge majority out there of these 200 messages that I would say are not going to get results. And if only girls are swiping on 4% of the guys, you don't want to miss out on your chance. So let me know in the comments if you've been sending these messages, if they've been working for you. Let me know. If you have messages that do work for you, I'd love to hear those, and I can test those out as well. But that's all I got for today. Until next time, we'll see you later.